The North Somerset Yeomanry was first raised in Frome in 1798. A condition of service was that it should not be required to march more than 10 miles for the town, and it was soon disbanded in 1802. The Frome Troop was re-raised in 1803 and united with the East Mendip Corps in 1804. This new Yeomanry Regiment being designated the North Somerset Yeomanry Cavalry in 1814. The Yeomanry were a select corps, with members accepted only on the recommendation of one or more serving members and usually paying an entrance fee. The main employment in the early 19th century was the suppression of riots, such as among miners in Radstock in 1817 and among weavers in Frome in 1822. History. Formation and early history. Second Boer War. The Yeomanry was not intended to serve overseas, but due to the string of defeats during Black Week in December 1899, the British government realized they were going to need more troops than just the regular army. A royal warrant was issued on the 24th of December 1899 to allow volunteer forces to serve in the Second Boer War. The royal warrant asked standing yeomanry regiments to provide service companies of approximately 115 men each for the Imperial Yeomanry. The regiment provided the 48th Company for the 7th Battalion in 1900. First World War. In accordance with the Territorial and Reserve Forces Act 1907, which brought the Territorial Force into being, the TF was intended to be a home defense force for service during wartime, and members could not be compelled to serve outside the country. However, on the outbreak of war on the 4th of August 1914, many members volunteered for Imperial service. Therefore, TF units were split in August and September 1914 into first-line and second-line units. Later, a third line was formed to act as a reserve, providing trained replacements for the first and second-line regiments. 1/1 of a Stone North Somerset Yeomanry, the first-line regiment, mobilized at Bath in August 1914 as part of the 1st Southwestern Mounted Brigade. In October 1914 it moved to Sussex with the brigade, but left it shortly afterwards. It landed in France on the 3rd of November and joined the 6th Cavalry Brigade, 3rd Cavalry Division on the 13th of November, replacing the 10th Hussars, who moved to the newly formed 8th Cavalry Brigade. As such, it was one of only 6 yeomanry regiments to be posted to a regular cavalry division in the war. Trench warfare meant there was little scope for cavalry operations. Nevertheless, in 1915 the brigade and division took part in the Second Battle of Ypres and the Battle of Loos. 1916 saw no notable actions, but in 1917 the division saw action in the Battle of Arras. At other times, the regiment served in the trenches as part of a dismounted regiment under the command of the brigade commander. The regiment left 6th Cavalry Brigade on the 10th of March 1918. Originally it was slated to become a cyclist unit, then to form a machine gun battalion with the Leicestershire Yeomanry. The German spring offensive forestalled this plan, and the regiment was remounted and returned to the Cavalry Corps. From April 1918 it was split up, with a squadron joining each regiment in 6th Cavalry Brigade. 2/1 of a Stone North Somerset Yeomanry. The second-line regiment was formed in 1914, and in January 1915 it joined 2/1 of a Stone Southwestern Mounted Brigade. In May it was in the Calne area. It moved in September to the Canterbury area and to the Colchester area in March 1916. On the 31st of March 1916, the remaining mounted brigades were ordered to be numbered in a single sequence. The brigade became the 15th Mounted Brigade and joined 4th Mounted Division. In July 1916, the regiment was converted to a cyclist unit in 6th Cyclist Brigade, 2nd Cyclist Division. In November 1916, the 2nd Cyclist Division was broken up and the regiment was merged with the 2/1 of a Stone Royal Wiltshire Yeomanry to form 10th Yeomanry Cyclist Regiment in 4th Cyclist Brigade in the Ipswich area. In March 1917 it resumed its identity as 2/1 of a Stone North Somerset Yeomanry, still in 4th Cyclist Brigade at Ipswich. In July it was at Wivenhoe and in November at Walton on the Naze. Early in 1918, the regiment moved to Ireland with 4th Cyclist Brigade and was stationed in Dublin. There was no further change before the end of the war. 3/1 of a Stone North Somerset Yeomanry. The 3rd Line Regiment was formed in 1915 and in the summer it was affiliated to a Reserve Cavalry Regiment at Tidworth. In the summer of 1916 it was affiliated to the 11th Reserve Cavalry Regiment, also at Tidworth. Early in 1917 it was absorbed in the 6th Reserve Cavalry Regiment, still at Tidworth. Between the wars, post-war, a commission was set up to consider the shape of the territorial force. The experience of the First World War made it clear that cavalry was surfeit. The commission decided that only the 14 most senior regiments were to be retained as cavalry. 8 regiments were converted to armoured car companies of the Royal Tank Corps. 1 was reduced to a battery in another regiment. 1 was absorbed into a local infantry battalion. 1 became a signals regiment and 2 were disbanded. The remaining 25 regiments were converted to brigades of the Royal Field Artillery between 1920 and 1922. As the 11th most senior regiment in the order of precedence, the regiment was retained as horse cavalry. Second World War. The regiment was still mounted at the outbreak of the Second World War. On the 15th of November 1939, it joined the newly formed 4th Cavalry Brigade in 1st Cavalry Division. It departed the United Kingdom in January 1940, transited across France, and arrived in Palestine at the end of the month, where it served as a garrison force under British forces, Palestine and Transjordan. In June and July 1941, it took part in operations against the Vichy French in Syria. On the 1st of August 1941, the division was converted into the 10th Armoured Division, but the regiment remained in Syria with the 5th Cavalry Brigade until December 1941. It returned to Palestine where, in April 1942, it was converted to a Royal Corps of Signals unit as 4th Air Formation Signals. Its role was to provide communications between the Army and the RAF, and as such it served in the North Africa, Sicily, and Italy. In 1944, it returned to the United Kingdom where it was redesignated as 14th Air Formation Signals and then served in Northwest Europe. Post-war. After the war, the regiment became the Armoured Regiment of 16th Airborne Division and joined with the 44th Royal Tank Regiment to become the North Somerset and Bristol Yeomanry in 1956. Although the regular battalions of the Somerset Light Infantry and the Duke of Cornwall's Light Infantry merged to become the Somerset and Cornwall Light Infantry in 1959. The territorial battalions kept their county names. In 1967, the Territorial Battalion and elements of the North Somerset Yeomanry and West Somerset Yeomanry merged to form the Somerset Yeomanry and Light Infantry, which changed title again in 1971 to become the 6th Battalion, the Light Infantry. In 1969, when the complete disbandment of the Territorial Army was being considered, it was reduced to a cadre of 8 men, as was the Duke of Cornwall's Light Infantry. 39 Signal Regiment. The North Somerset Yeomanry was reformed as the headquarters squadron of 39 Signal Regiment in 2000 and, from 2008, the squadron became the regiment's support squadron. The regiment now consists of the following elements: Regimental Headquarters Bristol, 56 Signal Squadron, 57 Signal Squadron, 93 Support Squadron, 94 Signal Squadron. Battle Honours. The North Somerset Yeomanry was awarded the following battle honours: Popular Culture. The Hollywood motion picture War Horse featured a fictional depiction of the regiment in France in 1914. Bibliography. Beck Major A.F. Order of Battle of Divisions Part 1. The Regular British Divisions. London, His Majesty's Stationery Office. ISBN 1-871167094. Bellis, Malcolm A. Regiments of the British Army 1939–1945. London, Military Press International. ISBN 0854209999. James Brigadier. British Regiments 1914–18. London, Samson Books Limited. ISBN 0906304032. Jocelyn L.T. Cole H.F. Orders of Battle. Second World War 1939–1945. London, London Stamp Exchange. ISBN 0948130032. Milam, Patrick. The Yeomanry Regiments, 200 Years of Tradition. Edinburgh, Canongate Academic. ISBN 1898410364. Perry, F.W. Order of Battle of Divisions Part 5b. Indian Army Divisions. Newport, Gwent. Ray Westlake Military Books. ISBN 1871167238-X. Rinaldi, Richard A. Order of Battle of the British Army 1914. Ravi Rikai. ISBN 978097760728-0.